Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 87.
Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast with your host, Jack Mountain Bushcraft School founder and Master Main Guide, Tim Smith.
I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm a registered Master Main Guide and have been a full-time outdoor instructor and guide since founding the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School in 1999. We help people become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more confident in the natural world through our bushcraft and guide training semester programs and multi-week canoe and snowshoe expeditions. You can check out the show notes to all of our podcasts at blog.jackmtn.com. If you're interested in learning more about our college-accredited and GI Bill-approved programs, visit the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School on the web at jackmtn.com. And check out our online network and digital learning academy at bushcraftschool.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast.
Start that over.
Yeah, let's roll with it. Hello. It is June 6th, 2020. This is Tim Smith and Christopher Russell in the Guide Shack at the field school, fully caffeinated.
Yep.
And it's been a while since we've done this.
Yeah, it has. We running the spring semester, and it's just been go, go, go. This is our guide training semester, which is the first time we've run it in that kind of mentality, and it's just been sunlight to sunset. We're on and working with people.
Yeah, and we've done 86 of these published in the past, and we're kind of running low on things to talk about where we're not going to plagiarize previous episodes.
Yeah.
And we, having worked together for several years, now have literally nothing left to say to each other.
We were talking before we started that even if the topics from one podcast to another are on polar ends of the information scale, we still use the same 6 stories to talk about them.
Right.
They're all we've got.
But my plan has always been to not stop making podcasts until we get to 100. So maybe kicking and screaming. Maybe I'll learn how to play like the accordion, and that'll be like episode 95. It's just me playing like Lady of Spain on the accordion or something, right? Who knows? A musical review show and variety hour.
Listeners, please write in with your opinions about that idea. I'd love to hear what you guys think about 45 minutes of Tim playing, or not even playing, learning to play the accordion.
So yeah, June 6th, that means that the Guide Shack is a breeding ground for the rare endangered northern mosquito now. There's about 60 million of them in here.
They're just working so hard to stay around.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about some current events. We just wrapped up week 5 of the spring 2020 Wilderness Guide Training semester, which for most intents and purposes is the same as the Wilderness Bushcraft semester. We're working on differentiating the two. And after this year's experience, I think we have a much better roadmap of how we're going to do that in the future and what that will entail. But so far, so good. We started 3 weeks late, as a result of the COVID virus, which if you haven't heard of, you're probably in a cave right now. And I'm
probably aren't listening to this. Yeah.
Curious how you get your Wi-Fi and podcasts.
It's the tinfoil hat. It comes right in.
But, even May 4th when we started, there was still 3 feet of snow on the road and we got vehicles stuck. And, welcome to Aroostook County.
We have a tradition up here where we show up in the spring and there's still snow on the road. And Tim's convinced he can just gun the truck and get through the snow. And then myself and whichever students are around, dig them out.
12 times, right? And I'm 0 for 12, but I'm hopeful. 2021's going to be my year.
Try again.
So we've been really doing a lot of poling and paddling canoes. Yesterday we were out running the rip on the Big Machias River, one of our local rivers, and just an awesome river. And the rip right at the bottom, right as you come into town, is right now it's pretty shallow. The water levels drop dramatically, so it's just about ideal for poling. There's barely enough water you couldn't push enough water with a paddle to control your boat.
And it's a nice little section where there's various levels of speed on the water and hazards in the water, like rocks and stuff. And it's a nice little training ground.
Yeah, for sure.
And we used it as a sort of a gauge for us to watch our students as they're poling. We're leaving Monday morning to go out on a big 2-week Allagash trip, and that's big remote water, and we want to have a good sense of where people's skill levels are at.
Yeah, the beauty of the Allagash, and that's a fantastic trip. If you've never been, put it on your bucket list. The beauty of it is well-maintained campsites, beautiful water, good fishing this time of year. The downside, or the potential downside, is the trip. If you do all the headwater lakes, you've got like 30-something miles of headwater lakes, and then there's a big dam, Churchill Dam, and then the rest of it is mixed rivers and lakes, but mostly river from there on down. But the most challenging 2 miles of the 99-mile Allagash Wilderness Waterway are the first 2 river miles. So there's no sort of easing into it and building up to this big crescendo at the end. And that's the opposite. The St. John River trip, another awesome trip, the hardest part of the river trip is the final 3 miles of this 105-mile thing. So you can take people who are pretty well relative novices and kind of whip them into shape over the course of the trip, and maybe run the big rapids at the end of the St. John, which are called big rapids. I'm not using that as a descriptive term. But the Allagash is the exact opposite, that the hardest water is right at the beginning, right? So it's challenging. So we're trying to get a gauge on where people are at. We do a lot of instructional stuff during the course, and then we encourage people to go out in groups of no fewer than 2 boats on the local water here and practice, get some miles in. So the last official class day before the trip, we spent 2 hours down on the rips and got a really good idea of where everybody's at.
Yeah, it's a super helpful thing from a guide and an instructor perspective, is to, everybody will say they're checked out, but to actually see it gives you a much better sense of how to make decisions going forward.
I'm mentally and emotionally checked out.
I'm aware.
So we're headed out on the 2-week Allagash trip, and then we come back and we've got 2 final weeks on the course. But so far so great. Great group of people, really enjoying having them, and we have a big field school development that's taken place this spring. We've finally got our new field in Moose Vegas stumped and leveled, and the white clover is planted and it's coming in. This Saturday morning we're sitting down to record this is a nice kind of gentle rainy day, so that ought to really boost the
term you've been using is it's going to go bananas.
It's going to go bananas.
It's going to go bananas.
And if we were on a banana plantation...
Which is weird because you planted clover, but somehow it's going to be bananas.
Well, I once lived on a banana plantation in Central America, and I always said that the bananas are going to go clover.
Huh. It's an interesting... I wonder what the etymology of that phrase is. How did that start? Or is that just the ramblings of...
I'm just making it up as I
you
go.
being emotionally and physically
This is the
out.
coffee talking. This isn't me talking.
I am the coffee, Randy.
So we're super excited about that. If you ever have a piece of ground of your own and you sort of walk around, look at it constantly, and you think about what you're going to do with it long term. We started clearing that, I think, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just about an acre, but we did the whole thing with axes, and then now it's cleared and stumped and leveled. So there'll be a vegetable garden up there. We're going to have outdoor, we're going to replicate everything that's in the main camp, so outdoor showers, clotheslines, primitive laundry setup.
It's been fun because every opportunity Tim's had during the day-to-day instruction, I'll kind of look around and he'll be gone. And in my head, I know he's up the hill, sort of puttering around, looking at it and imagining what it could be. He's sort of becoming an old-timey land baron. He's just walking around, watching stuff grow.
Yes, with my giant white hat.
Yeah, you are a Kentucky Colonel.
I am a Kentucky Colonel. So the Colonel is up perusing the grounds,
hands behind his back, staring down at the ground.
I need a riding crop or something. Sort of prop.
You don't need another prop. There's so many props.
But yeah, we're going to plant. In addition to having it as a field where people can camp, we're going to plant some apple trees, a bunch of perennials.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're super excited about that.
Yeah, 100%. And just even the bugs being cut down by it being a big open area with nowhere for them to land is going to be a game changer.
Yeah, it already is.
It already is.
So yeah, we've got that going for us, which is super nice and exciting. Last bit of current events, open spots on upcoming programs. We don't have many left for this year. So I think we've got, I think we have one spot left on the Summer Woodsman. I think we have one spot left on the 2-week Riverman course, which will also be a full-length trip on the Allagash, a 99-mile canoe trip from Chamberlain Bridge to Allagash Village. One spot left on that. And we have got, I think, one spot left on the fall semester.
One or two.
I think we had 2 sign-ups yesterday, so I think we're down to one.
Yeah.
One spot left in the fall semester. So the next kind of really open program we've got on the I want to say catalog, on the schedule right now is the Autumn Woodsman. So if you're curious about the Autumn Woodsman, how is it different than the Summer Woodsman? In a word, cold. So we run the Autumn Woodsman early November, and the point of the Autumn Woodsman is to have a cold weather course without a ton of snow. So you get to learn all of the lessons about cold weather, things like that, but you don't have to navigate like 4-foot deep snow drifts. And usually we can still drive in the road, so it's logistically pretty simple. So if you're interested in, how to get by, how to thrive in the cold weather, that might be a good one for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our main topic today,
big stuff. It's
is
exciting.
A new program. Well, this is coming in 2020, right? This
Yeah.
isn't. I was going to say coming in 2021, but
No, 2020. The plan is to start it in the fall once we wrap up the fall semester.
So tell me about your big idea.
Yeah, so we, for a while, have sort of been scheming, as we were apt to do, about It's really hard for most people to take 9 weeks out of their lives to come up here and do a long semester. And so we've been, over the winter, we experimented a lot with the online learning course, and that was sort of the last piece of what we wanted to do, which is to have a long-term, we've been referring to it as sort of a National Guard style program where people come out for 1 weekend a month, and then over 11 months, and then culminate with 2 weeks up here at our field school, 1 week on the field school property, and another week out on a trip.
So the National Guard is about like the how we were referring to that as the
Right.
National Guard program has nothing to do with the National Guard.
Not at all.
It was just the way that it kind of fits into the calendar.
Right.
1 weekend a month and 2 weeks at the end of the year in the summer.
Yeah, so we want this to be 10 to 11 months, and it'll start in the fall and end in the summer up here, hopefully towards the later summer when the bugs have kind of died down.
It'll start in the fall, not up here.
No, it'll start in the fall down in, so this is the first of these programs that we're going to sort of use as a template for journeymen that come through our program. And the idea behind this is that we've talked for a long time about all knowledge being local, and we want to prove it. We want journeymen, wherever they are, to be able to run a program like this and using the systems that they've learned up here, educate people about the place they're in. We're referring to this as the Coming Home to the Forest course. And the idea behind it is that it's local knowledge, and then you get to apply that knowledge in an on-trail experience.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, just to sort of summarize.
Yeah, that was a little rambly.
You just need more coffee.
Yeah, that's the answer.
So Christopher spends his winters with his beautiful lady friend in Brattleboro,
Talking
Vermont.
about Sable?
Yeah.
I'm going to get in trouble for that.
Christopher spends his winters in Brattleboro, Vermont, southeastern Vermont. So the idea would be that he would run a series of weekend in-person classes there, supplemented with distance learning via online stuff throughout the other 3 or 4 weeks of the month. And then at the end of that, and that'll be seasonally oriented, seasonally appropriate,
Right.
and locally based. So, maybe the plants there are significantly different than here. The mammals, the tracking, the weather, all those things will be specific to that place.
Right.
And then finish with a 2-week field experience, some of it at the field school, some of it out on the trail, where it's sort of the culminating experience that locks everything in.
Yeah, and, we keep, like I said before, this is all about it being local, and the advantage of this being long-term is, like you said, you get to see the place you're in every season. And if students that have come here can absolutely come up to one of our long-term semesters, can absolutely go home and learn all that local knowledge on their own. But it's much easier to do when you have somebody that's sort of guiding you through it. And this system will allow for that.
And it follows along with our kind of tried and true method that real growth takes time to happen.
Right.
So the idea of like learning if you did a 1 weekend, one-off course, there's only so much you can cover that, when you work with someone long-term, you have that kind of mentorship thing going on where the instructor knows where the student's at, kind of has a good feeling as to where the student's going and how best to get them there. So over the course of a year, there's an opportunity for incredible growth, you know, without the hardships, say, of having to travel, to leave home, to take a leave of absence from your work, to leave your family. So yeah, that's kind of the impetus for this, and I'm really excited about it. It's something I've thought about that is definitely absent from our catalog of courses for some time, right? Like Christopher said, not everybody can get away for 9 weeks. Not everybody can come up to northern Maine. You know, we have families, we have loved ones, we have other commitments. So I'm excited that this will make our programs and programming available to a much larger group of people.
Yeah, and you know, pairing the local stuff with, so like you said, this is a long-term thing, and if it just sort of fizzled out at the end and didn't have this big culminating experience, which is coming up to the field school, I don't think it would be cemented as well. So having the access to the local knowledge and then the ability to come up here and see that all this stuff you've been doing one weekend a month for the last 11 months or so translates perfectly into being in a totally different environment with the skills you know, and you can take it on trail in a really remote area and it still just works. I think that's going to be a super powerful aspect of this, is that opportunity. It just sort of solidifies it all for you and gives students that take this course a big boost of confidence.
Definitely.
Which is great.
And the other thing is, there's hardly anybody in northern Maine.
Yeah.
Right? There's nobody around. It's just
Right.
very sparsely populated.
Yeah.
So taking this model, this educational model, down to an area where there are a lot more people, opens it up, makes it available to a much broader cross section of people. I mean, people ask us, who takes your semester course? And it's usually people in transition.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people transitioning out of college, transitioning out of the military, transitioning between jobs, maybe even getting out of like a long-term relationship and needing to hit the reset button. But the ability to again, take 9 weeks and disappear into the forest, it's hard.
Yeah. The other side of that is that it's sort of in keeping with that local thing we keep talking about, is that we want everybody to have access to this. The sort of subtitle for this program is the Friluftsliv project.
The what?
Friluftsliv, which is a Scandinavian term that we've talked about before on the podcast, but not totally in depth. But it's sort of the idea that it's the antithesis of what I would argue the modern bushcraft industry has become. The idea behind it is that you don't need really anything other than the ability to walk through the woods to take part and, as we like to say, participate in the natural world. And I think that this sort of framing where it's a slow burn course where people slowly learn more about what's around them is going to greatly increase it'll become part of like your culture that you're living every month, because you're coming and being around other people that are just enjoying being in nature. And the best example of Friluftsliv I've ever heard was someone talking about it in the way that it doesn't need to be high octane. You don't need big, fuel burning engines to go do it. It can be as simple as once a week taking a walk in the woods with your family. That's Friluftsliv. And that's what I want these courses to be. I don't want them to be, about being quote unquote hard or being a survival expert of the lone wolf. I want this to be a community-based thing that's just about enjoying and understanding the natural world and starting to see better and better how you fit into it. And we're going to do the next podcast we have planned is a whole podcast about Friluftsliv, because it's a concept that is, I think, absent from the American outdoors mentality for the most part. And my plan moving forward with these courses is to really kind of bring that sense of interacting with the natural world to at least New England, and then hopefully more and more will take over the world.
So is it cool when you're running your course if I come over and sell my like 8-foot long survival knives out of the back of my jacked up 4x4 9,000 horsepower truck?
No.
No?
No. Because we want this to be, again, like I said, we want this to be about, we have this term up here, which is process, not product. And it's sort of the same idea as that, is that if you walk into the woods for a day hike. You don't need to bring a bunch of stuff. And that walk will be good enough on its own, and it will be better and better the more you learn about what's happening around you while you walk through the woods.
Yeah, I was obviously joking,
Yeah.
like 900 horsepower. It's got to be at least like 1,100 horsepower. A critique of sort of the American interaction with nature. We're always out trying to conquer things and whatever. And other parts of the world have a much different, and other cultures have a much different interaction with the natural world. And I think that's awesome. You know, in America, it's so much about the gear and the knife, and look at this knife, how awesome it is, and it'll cut you. And
So with the School of the Forest podcast, I interviewed our good friend Rafe Bowman, and he had a great phrase that he used, which is that bushcraft has become more about show and sell.
Yeah,
which is exactly it, right? It's if you don't have this knife, you're going to die. But the reality is, if you've got a sharp pocket knife and you know what to do with it, you should be okay. Or if you don't have anything, you can still enjoy walking around in the woods.
Well, the reality is we're all going to die.
It's the last thing you're going to do.
Eventually.
Right.
But yeah, the idea of, and I think he was talking about it as well, the idea of like gear shaming and knowledge shaming.
Exactly.
Like you got to have the right stuff, you got to have the right look to kind of participate. And this is the antithesis to that. Like no one cares. In reality, okay, here's a news flash for everybody out there. No one really cares what knife you have. No one cares what gear you have. It just doesn't matter. You know, it's from the experiential perspective. Right. It matters when people get in these ridiculous competitions and egos get involved. But in reality, like, who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if you've got to have that perfect custom-made blade with a certain steel type, and, you know, here's another news flash. Like 99% of human history, we use stone tools.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we go back to the Paleolithic, nobody had the fancy trousers or the fancy knife or the fancy whatever. And in 2020, I'm going to make the bold statement here. I don't care what kind of knife you have. I do care what you can accomplish with the gear.
Right.
So, like, the gear itself, which has become the focus in so much of bushcraft land these days, it's just a distraction, right? Like, it's people wanting to buy into the club, you know?
Yes.
Like, hey, look at me. I'm part of the club. I look like everybody else. I've got the right gear, the right stuff. And I don't care.
No,
I'm sure some people do
I would
care.
say that our approach is to say that, you know, not to be foofy about it, but whatever stuff you've got, welcome to the club.
Yeah.
You know, like we love this stuff, and we love it because we live in it all the time and we get to participate in it. And this is our way to say, yeah, come hang out, come enjoy the woods. Like, I mean, it's the reason we titled the course what we did, which is Coming Home to the Forest. We lived in the woods for a lot longer than we lived in high rises or in suburban areas, and it doesn't after years of doing this, I've seen that it doesn't take long for people to just fall right back into sort of my old boxing coach had this phrase, which was let the ancient senses do their work, and that's what happens up here. We are suited to this, and it takes a little bit of skill set to get there, but once you have it, it's so comfortable. And that's what we want to bring people.
Muscular, it's in our muscular DNA, right?
Yes,
it's something deep inside of you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly.
So those programs, it's not a sort of one-upsman competition about who's got the best gear that's perfect.
Yeah, and again, it'll be smallish groups up to 10 people, and I think that's a good number for this, where it becomes a little community over these 11 months, and then you all get to come up here. And
so I live in Brattleboro, Vermont's like 3 hours from New York City or something,
give or take.
So if I live in New York City, how does it work? I sign up, I find you online, I sign up, and I come up. What do I rent a hotel?
So the way this will work is that I live on a little homestead, as you mentioned, with my my partner, and you'll come up and camp on our property for a weekend, and most of them will be regular weekends, but every once in a while, especially in the winter, we'll have long weekends where it's 3 days, and you'll get to come up and
3 days, 2 nights.
Yep, 3 days, 2 nights. Stay in a wall tent, experience the winter the way it should be, rather than just suffering through it. And you'll come up for that weekend and participate in the educational aspect, which is the skills-based stuff, and then you'll go home and over the next 3 weeks work on stuff at home, which is maybe it's the nature studies, and then we'll assign specific animals that we know you'll get to interact with when you come up, and then you get to pair this book knowledge with a real world experience or something like that. And over 11 months, you'll build up a skill set that will allow you to come up here and live well on trail.
Awesome. So during those 3 weeks, you're going to be interacting with people via the bushcraftschool.com online network.
Yes.
Yeah, so it'll be sort of a hybrid between a distance learning and an in-person learning for the sake of commute time, right? So that you don't have to... So the time that you're together with people, FaceTime, if you will, not the Apple thing, but actually face-to-face interaction, you will be working on stuff. And then when people go home, they're going to work on things independently through the online network to supplement and complement what you do when you're together.
Right. And often I resisted the online stuff for a while because I think a lot of these skills can't be learned that way. But I think if... we saw at this course, when people show up having already done our weather course, they're ready to hit the ground running once they're here and ready. And I think that's going to work completely in our favor, where people have seen what they're going to be working on the weekend they come up, and they kind of already have an idea of what's going on, and we can jump right into getting like the physical knowledge of it to go with the mental knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody out there who's gone through the pandemic recently, if you have kids, they were probably all doing Zoom classes from home. Maybe you were working from home, if you have a job. And so, the writing's sort of on the wall that the future of education, and even this form of outdoor education, is going to be a hybrid between online and offline.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to get ahead of that curve. And again, this will be the template for all the people that come and achieve our journeyman certification,
right,
that they will have the option to, run a similar type of program where they're from.
Which is so cool to me, because we have students come to the semesters from all over the world. And the idea of them taking these systems that they've learned and they've really come to make their own while they're up here and apply it to whatever ecosystem they're in is so fascinating to me, because it not only opens it up to the people in their community to come and learn, but it means that, I love the idea of being able to get in touch with another journeyman that lives in the jungle and ask them questions about the jungle, which scares me. The jungle is terrifying. Like, we think our bugs are bad, but I'd love to see how they solve those problems here. And that all that kind of stuff is, again, we've talked a lot about how we want this to be a community-based thing. And so there's like the ground level community, which is the people that are at these courses. And there's that bigger community, which is our alumni who have come through here. We know they're checked out, and we know that whatever they're applying to wherever they are, we can sort of take as an honest answer about where they are and how they're interacting with it. And that's so cool to me, rather than just reading a book by someone I've never met.
Yeah, for sure. So that's kind of what's coming down the pike, right?
Yeah.
Look online for details on this. So what's the course called again?
Coming Home to the Forest, the Friluftsliv project.
Nice.
Yeah. And like I said before, we'll have another episode once we get back from the Allagash, going really deeply into what Friluftsliv is, and more importantly, what it's not. Because we want people to really come into these courses with that mindset.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I guess I should probably start packing for the trip. 12 days on the trail. Got to make a menu. Got to make sure that I don't have any holes in my tent or my bug net. And,
yep. I'm going to bring a smudge pot and that $900 knife you were talking about. And
That's
I'll be good.
all I need.
That's all I need.
My knife is hollow handled, so the handle is a smudge pot. I swing it around and I keep the bugs away with the handle.
How do you not burn your hands on it?
It's on a chain.
Just a knife on a chain.
Yeah, it's like a medieval kind of siege weapon.
Flail. Oh my god!
Right.
You're a medieval siege weapon.
Well, thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with us today, and hopefully we'll be doing these a little more regularly. Again, the goal is, before we completely throw in the towel and hang up the old audio recorder on the shelf to never be taken down again, is to get to 100 of these.
You're coming up on it.
So we're getting closer, inching closer,
centimetering.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this, please leave us a review or share it with somebody. And definitely don't miss out. Christopher is creating his own podcast. Now, give yourself a quick little plug for that.
Yeah, so the School of the Forest podcast is a podcast that I'm running. That's
really good.
That's really good.
Wow.
So the School of the Forest podcast is centered around the idea that essentially I didn't want to talk to anyone about knives anymore. So what I've been doing with it is bringing on ecologists and hunters and other outdoor educators that don't necessarily work in the bushcraft or guide industry. They're educating about wildlife and stuff like that. And it's been really fun to sit and chat with some of these people. I just recorded one that'll go live Wednesday about with a guy who's trying to start a wolf sanctuary in southern Vermont, which is, stuff like that is awesome to me. So it's more ecology based than it is skills based, which has been great.
Yeah, and it's on all the
Apple,
usual
iTunes.
suspects.
Apple and iTunes are the same thing. It's on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify.
iTunes doesn't exist anymore. It's Apple Podcasts.
Okay, it's on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or just at schooloftheforest.com. You can find a link to the.
That was the veteran podcaster schooling the rookie podcaster with it doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah. One day I'll summit it.
Yeah, you can find it anywhere.
Yep.
Give it a listen.
It's been a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, that's all I got.
Yep.
Time to go do something.
I clearly don't have anything else because I don't even know what podcasts are real anymore.
Right on. Yeah. And I think the Google podcast thing quit and the Google Play Store is over.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of tumultuousness in the podcasting realm these days.
It's like the War of the Roses, but with audio files.
So, you know what I'm going to do?
That's a history reference for all you people.
I'm going to take my special 8-foot knife with the smudge pot handle, and I'm going to go save the podcast princess.
All right. We're going to do that right after we quit talking because I think it's about time.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You have been listening to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. For more information on our professional wilderness guide training programs that are college accredited and GI Bill approved, visit us on the web at jackmtn.com.